Welcome back to another episode of the Orange Ball Podcast. My name is Sam, along with Brendan here. We had a good weekend. We watched some live in-person college football.
Yeah, dude, it was a good weekend. It was probably one of the best. Lived in Boise for about 5 years now. Been to a bunch of games there. That was by far and away the best game I've ever seen on the blue, and it felt like from so many people in the past that have told us about this magic on the blue. Haven't really seen it, and I'm fully bought in on it now because that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was awesome. The whole environment, they've been really investing in the lights and the sound system, video screen, and it kind of felt like it finally it all came together last weekend, and it was, like you said, one of the best games I've ever been to for Boise State. And obviously they played well too, which we'll talk about.
I think that's what kind of helped everyone realize, okay, yeah, all this stuff, yeah, it's great, the lights and all that stuff, but when the product on the field isn't great, that's not, the ideal situation. Yeah, you can have a great sound system, but if you don't have a great team, it's not as doesn't work that way. So
very true.
But like you said, great game by BSU, really tough opponent. It was finally one of those games where you saw it all come together, like you said. So it was cool to witness in person for sure.
Yeah, we'll get more into that, but first, the big news kind of in the last few days: Gonzaga to the Pac-12. Some people kind of saw it coming. There was earlier reports that they were going to do that, but what does that kind of mean for the conference, basically?
I think it's a massive upgrade to the obviously Gonzaga. They could have put them in whatever conference they're in. I think they compete. Regardless of Pac-12, you probably put them in any conference and they'll be a competitor. They're not going anywhere. They're going to have the same team year in and year out and competitive. And, I think adding them, you remove some of the teams that, no disrespect, but, some of the teams at the bottom of the conference that you kind of wipe away with what they were doing. I saw kind of if you were to put this last year's conference together with the new Pac-12, the net ranking would be, the third or fourth best conference in the country, which I agree with. I think it will be a tremendous conference, and I also think adding Gonzaga back into the mix probably brings Memphis more interested. I know they turned down the initial offer. I think it was a little low, but they're just in a bad conference, and I think you get Memphis or Tulane, both of those guys that kind of come over. You're talking about a really, really strong league, and it's going to be really exciting. I'm excited to see it.
Me too. Yeah. Well, when they first started with the whole Pac-6, I guess, with the 4 Mountain West schools and then Washington State and Oregon State, it was like, yeah, it's a good basketball conference, but then you add Gonzaga into the mix, and that just boosts it way up, and there's going to be some great games, great environments. Like you said about other schools that missed out, kind of one of them is UNLV. Like, they shot themselves in the foot a little bit.
Yeah, I think they obviously got a huge payday.
But short term.
Yeah, that's what I'm, I can't remember who said it, but I saw on Twitter someone was kind of using the analogy of like buy a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime, like that kind of thing, where it's like, yeah, you're going to get $25 million. That's a lot of money straight up front. But I mean, that league is going to be a one bid league going forward. I know they're going to add like UTEP and Texas State. That doesn't do anything for your like that's not really an upgrade. You have to have those teams. I think they're going to get Hawaii. It looked like today that to become a full member, so they'll play basketball in Hawaii. But I mean, I think UNLV is going to, if they don't win their league, they're going to look back and think that, oh man, that was probably a mistake on our part. And we're also talking about 2 years from now. Things change quickly in college athletics in general, so I think it'll be something that if that now they can't really reconsider because they just have kind of bought into this money, but maybe they do, and I think Vegas is as valuable as you can be, but I don't know what they do going forward, and they're trying to be kind of the big team in the Mountain West, but I mean that means you have to make the tournament every year, or else I mean that's just a one bid league, and the Pac-12 is kind of now going to be the biggest conference on the West Coast for sure.
Yeah, and talking about that, do we see Gonzaga bring their football team back, or is that a long shot?
I think that's probably done. I think if it's anything, because I think they're going to come in as a basketball school only, maybe. I can't remember, and kind of get a full share, which is deserving because they're one of the best programs in the country. I think you might see, especially if there's a major increase in kind of this TV stuff and that kind of deal, like Boise State bringing back baseball, which they were initially going, like they had a team planned, and then COVID kind of ruined that. I think some of those other schools that maybe don't have these other programs will be able to get some money generated and kind of have that. But I don't think Gonzaga needs a football team. I think they're making enough money themselves to kind of sustain it on basketball only. It's not a big school by any means, so I think they're fine with not having football. It would be cool, but that would also be a challenge to just jump right in to a FBS league.
Yeah, I don't see it happening either. It's just funny to see people on Twitter speculate and kind of.
But I mean, like you said, you kind of weed out the bottom feeders of the conference, and now all of a sudden you have, on the West Coast, the best environments to play in, other than maybe some of the teams that are in the Big Ten now. But it'll be a really exciting league, competitive. I don't think by any means Gonzaga is going to walk in and go undefeated. I think they'll drop. You're going to see, especially here in Boise, or if you go to Fort Collins, like those places are going to be packed. For
San Diego State.
State. Those are huge matchups, and Gonzaga and San Diego State have played, and they're really competitive with each other. And so I think all those games are going to be super, super close. And I don't see Gonzaga just coming in and showing up and be able to sweep the league. I think it'll be a great conference, and it's regional, which is different obviously now, and you got Pullman and Spokane up there, and Oregon State, Boise are close. Like you have all these schools that are kind of the premier basketball teams on this side of the western states kind of thing. So I'm really excited to see that come into fruition for sure.
Yeah, I was about to say regionality in the West Coast is back, just like how God intended it to be.
Yeah, right.
But you got all those schools close together. It makes it better makes it better environments for fans traveling to away games, and kind of that rivalry you have, especially with teams like Pullman and Spokane, like that close to each other. And it just makes everything better. Yeah,
and I think it just does the having Gonzaga in your league is such a big plus, because they play such a. I don't know if they'll change this now that they're in the league, but they do play, like, I have to give them a lot of credit. They play a really challenging non-conference schedule every year, and so many people like to say that like they don't play anyone. It's like, what else are they supposed to do? They may change that now because they're going to be in a much more competitive league, but like, there's only so much you can do, and they'll go out and play Kentucky, San Diego State, all these teams in the non-con. And then they don't really have a competitive game unless St. Mary's is good for a year or two, or they struggle against someone randomly in the West Coast Conference. But historically, they just really haven't played tough games from the end of December to March 1st. And so now I think you're going to see them be in a lot more competitive games. But like I said, they're not going away. They're not going to change their recruiting styles or anything like that. Like they're going to be the best team in the league for sure, but just a lot more competitive.
Yeah, like you said, it will be interesting because, especially I think it was last year they played Kentucky like in the middle of conference season.
Yeah.
Just to give them a bigger challenge closer to the NCAA tournament. But I think they'll be fine. Obviously, if they continue that tough non-con schedule, even if they're in the Pac-12. But it will be interesting to see kind of what they do. Kind of going back to UNLV a little bit. Some recent news was their quarterback, Solka, Matthew Solka. He came out and said that he's going to be redshirting the rest of the season and then entering the transfer portal. After leading UNLV to a 4-0 start as a quarterback, and they're ranked, and honestly is becoming a trend. There's a few other players doing that.
I think you'll see this start to be a bigger trend going forward. And I don't know a lot of the specifics. There's kind of both camps, and like maybe he had an agent that was telling him he needs to go get, reevaluated for his NIL. And I can understand if you were promised that money. Like this isn't we're moving more towards like professional, but the thing about like the pros, they're such a strict. You can't have a contract argument in the middle of the season.
No.
Like that you can do it on the during the off season. We see that all the time in the NFL, NBA. Guys hold out for their contract. But also I don't think there was anything written down, which is just a major issue with college sports. If there becomes a time where, especially with like this revenue sharing and all that, you got to have stuff written down on paper, contracts signed. And if you're not promised that, I understand him leaving and getting one more year somewhere else where he can make money. He's not an NFL quarterback by any means. So if you have a chance to go make $100,000 as a college quarterback, I understand him wanting to do that. But also there's kind of both camps where it's like, yeah, he was promised money and he didn't get it. Might as well use your red shirt. But also he had a pretty dang good team who looks like a possibility for the playoff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a weird deal, and I think you'll see it pop up more often.
Yeah, it's one thing if he was promised money and he didn't get it, because that is I would understand that. That's upsetting. But it's also another thing if he got some money, then they ended up having this great first week, and he said he needed more, and they couldn't give that to him.
Yeah, that's
so
also
obviously
fair.
We don't know, but that's just hope that
But they
doesn't.
also when he left, there was a lot of the guys on the team that didn't really say, like, I don't know. It seemed like they just kind of moved on, and they had a great weekend last week.
Yeah.
Like they scored 60 points with their backup, who's a good quarterback too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was like we're gonna just pack it in now that we don't have this quarterback. I think there was a QB battle in the offseason. He won the job, left. The other guy gets the job and hops right in. They score 59 points.
Yeah.
So I think probably 3-4 more weeks we'll see Boise State go down there and play them, and that'll be probably for a playoff spot.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge game.
Big game down there. So, yeah, I don't know. There's different ways to look at it. I just think you'll see this until there's some sort of regulation or cap or contracts are being signed, these verbal contracts with NIL and collectives to players and we'll see this pop up way more often than not going forward. So It's just kind of how the unfortunate college sports is right now. And some programs do it really well and don't promise anything. And I think that's probably the way to go. And some use promising money as kind of a recruiting pitch, and that's going to hurt you in the future.
Yeah. Like we said earlier, we attended the Boise State versus Washington State game this weekend. It was awesome. Washington State fans, they're great. They travel well. They get rowdy. Tailgating, a lot of people. The whole environment was great around campus.
It was different even before the game.
Yeah.
You could just kind of tell, like, oh, this is gonna be really cool. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just a different buzz around the city in general. Even like leading up to the game, you could just tell, like, oh my, this is gonna be really cool.
Tickets were crazy expensive.
Yeah, I mean, the student section sold out in like 45 minutes, and they were there the whole game.
Yeah,
that's kind of been a gripe on Boise State alumni and fans, that the students kind of give up on the game at halftime. That didn't happen.
I mean, even they're up 3 touchdowns, and we were still there in the fourth quarter.
It was still exciting, and everyone kind of wanted like, okay, let's just keep this going because this is really cool.
Yeah.
And then as Boise State started to pull away, it was like, well, let's stop them again. Like,
let's
keep going. Like,
we were throwing pass plays on 4th down.
Yeah, like it was cool. It reminded me of when I was used to watch Boise State as a kid almost and see like no one goes and we went to school during a time where a loss on the blue was common.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the past I think I saw a stat like from like 1998 to 2014 they were like 110 on the blue.
Something
like,
crazy.
Just never lose. And there was always that magic of like playing on the blue and that game it was close, but it was like at some point we were going to win that game. Like Boise State was going to win that game, and it was just fun. And then obviously Ashton Genty, I mean, the dude is just an absolute freak. Like I don't think I've seen a running back like that ever before.
No, there hasn't been a player like that's been must watch or I've been so excited to watch since Johnny Manziel.
Yeah, honestly.
I
was about to say Johnny Manziel reminds me of kind of that hype where it's like you have to watch this guy play, and 4 games, 800 and almost 1,000 yards, and he played a half against Portland State, like,
and still put up 130 yards.
Like and it wasn't like he had like 11 carries or something. Like he kind of just he didn't score a touchdown. Still has 13 rushing touchdowns through 3 out of the 4 games that he's really played in. So, I mean, he had the first run he had. You go, okay, that was one of the craziest runs I've ever seen. He hurdles a guy, and then you go and he has another run where you're like, how was that better than the first run that he had?
Yeah.
And like, I mean, just guys bouncing off tackles. Like I think he had like 17 broken tackles in that game. Like it was unbelievable. He's the real deal, and I think Heisman Trophy wise, giving it to a running back's already a challenge, and I don't know if he'll win it, but he'll be in New York for that ceremony.
He definitely should.
Sure.
Yeah, that last the third touchdown he had when he broke that long one, we were up by 7. I think that was one of the best moments for sure. He took it to the right,
and they during the game, like at the game, I mean, he's got like he bounces off 3 tackles, and when they score a touchdown, they blow this cannon off. They blew the cannon off at like the 10-yard line. He breaks like 2 tackles and scores, and we were like, they just knew he was gonna score that. I mean, it was crazy. So, must watch TV, must watch in person. Like he's the real deal, and it'll be cool just to see, you know, if he goes for the records and all that stuff. But like, he's gonna win you a lot of games just by doing what he's doing. It's pretty special to watch.
Yeah, I saw this thing where he would be, if you took his yards after contact, he would still be 4th in the nation crazy. Overall.
Yeah, and it's even more impressive because, you know, during the offseason they did such a big like Heisman campaign and all that stuff, and everyone was kind of like, okay, well,
because we knew he was a great running back.
Yeah, everyone knew, especially around here, like he's a great back. You know, he's gonna do so many good things for you. But like Heisman campaigning at Boise State, it's kind of like, okay, well, you know, that's just not where the award goes to anymore, and he's blown those expectations off the chart. Like that's pretty crazy. That's even crazier to me than you know a Cam Ward who's playing at Miami on national television every day. He does his job. He's a great quarterback. He's going to be in the Heisman race, but now all of a sudden these national media guys are like, hold on a second, like Ashton Genty, that dude's legit. So.
I know. It's nice to see like the respect and that he's earned from these national media outlets, especially I feel like this last game kind of finally tipped it over. Like,
yeah, definitely.
If you weren't talking about him, most people were, but if you weren't, now you are for sure. And do you see Chuck Pagano on the so Chuck Pagano, he lives in Boise. He's a good friend of coaches, football coaches, as well as basketball coaches. But he was on there talking. He's wearing his Boise State sweatshirt. He was just talking about.
He does a great job of promoting.
Yeah, he does.
It's pretty cool.
He does. So it's cool to have him, and it's just cool to see Boise State being talked about. But another game that we did not get to watch, unfortunately, because we were just having pregame festivities, is the Alabama-Georgia game.
Yeah, I was kind of doing some tailgating and hanging out and saw the score. Okay, Alabama goes up 28-0. And during the game, I'm kind of checking my phone. Okay, it's 28-10, and it'll be. And then I see Georgia's up by 1 late in the game. I'm like, what happened? And then Alabama ends up winning, and I'm like, I got to rewatch the second half. One of the dude for Alabama, that Ryan Williams, and everyone talks about it, 17 years old. He is unbelievable. Like, he catches footballs that are like the one that he's caught and scored at the end of the game. That was not a touchdown pass. He kind of catches one on the sidelines and like adjusts his body to like get back into play, makes 2 guys miss and scores. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy is unbelievable. I don't know how you go about defending that. And credit to Georgia too. I mean, they came back and Carson Beck looked horrible in the first half, and then they turned it on, and so they'll be right in the mix too. But that was a cool game, and Alabama looks both those teams look pretty damn good in my opinion. But yeah, another one that I wish I could have seen more of it live, but it was pretty cool to see that game too.
Yeah, I need to go back and watch that. Like you said, you went back and watched it, but yeah, I mean, that game had all the hype going into it, and it certainly lived up to it. SEC football.
Yeah, I think you'll just start to see. And I know this weekend is I was kind of looking ahead to next, like all the following weeks, and this is definitely the last weekend of college football where you go, slate's okay. Like the weeks after this are, obviously the 12th has all those big games, but the weekend after has like Georgia and Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, like you just keep going down the list, and there's like huge football games after the next, and we're getting into a good time of the year where it's like the best college football games are ahead. College hoops are starting to turn up, and first practices are doing that, and schedules are coming out. So now all of a sudden there's going to be these great weekends of huge college football, huge college basketball, which will be fun.
Yeah. That is a pro of conference realignment. Just week after week, there's big game after big game. Yeah. So, yeah, but like you said, 30 days till the first college basketball game starts. So, we're excited for that. We'll start getting some more content pushed out with that. But should we do college football picks?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so let's start with game day going to Berkeley for the first time ever. I think there's only like 2 or 3 teams that haven't had it. The classic ACC matchup of Miami and Cal. I don't know how. I haven't seen. I know there's not a huge fan base in Berkeley, and but I'd imagine that this is probably the game that they pack their place. But I don't see Cal winning the game. No. Miami's they had this scare last week, and it was controversial at the end on Friday.
Oh, that was insane. I forgot about that.
Which, I mean, we can talk about that game for a second, but like the game, a Hail Mary, it was refs were confused. Everyone in the stands, they call it a touchdown. I don't know how they go back and say that wasn't a touchdown necessarily because you couldn't really see anything. But
it was like the Hail Mary for the Seahawks and Packers.
Very controversial. Miami wins the game. It kind of seemed like a game that in the past Mario Cristobal would lose. I just because he kind of has one game where it's a slip up, but they got it done, and now they got to travel all the way out to Berkeley this weekend. But they are a really good team, and Cam Ward is a really, really good quarterback. So I got the U on that one.
The U. A couple notes on this game. First, I feel bad for the equipment guys. I got to drive the truck all the way from Miami to Berkeley.
Actually, I heard it. Speaking of that, just knowing how crazy that gets is Stanford. They played back east 2 weeks ago, and I think they played NC State or I can't remember. Virginia, something like that. But then last week they were playing at Syracuse, and their equipment guy was like, "Why am I driving back to Northern California for one day and then having to drive all the way back?" So they're like trying to figure that out. But I just heard a story about the truck driver being like, "No, I'm not going all the way back to Northern California, just having to drive to Syracuse, New York." So they were doing that, but
that's brutal.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is crazy. But yeah, I think it'll be a cool game. It's late, but Cam Ward wins that game for Miami.
Also, next it is game day, and I heard that Marshawn Lynch is the celebrity picker.
Yeah, Marshawn Lynch.
That's going to be awesome. But I'm also going Miami. I mean, I love that Cal is winning because they never have really been good. And I bet it's going to be a great environment, especially first ever college game day there. So, but I'm still taking Miami. Yeah. Cam Ward, too good, like you said.
Next one we got A&M, Mizzou. This one's in College Station, and A&M's actually favored. I think they win this game. I haven't really seen Missouri prove that they're like a top 10 team in the country. Like, they've won some close games, but they seem like a team that at the end of the day, like at the end of the season, we're going to look back and be like, they were the 7th ranked team in the country. I think they're 9th this week. Like, I think A&M probably wins this game by a touchdown. I think it'll be close, but like, I think Missouri is like a 4-loss team in my opinion. I just haven't seen them prove that they're like worth the ranking of being that high.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you on this one. I'm going Missouri. I think. I mean, we've seen Texas A&M in a big game at Kyle Field when they lost to Notre Dame. It was kind of ugly, honestly. It wasn't a great game, but I think that Missouri is going to go in there and beat them. It is going to be close, but I think they're going to win by touchdown and a field goal.
Here's an interesting one. So Navy plays at Air Force, but Navy and Army undefeated.
Well, I wonder,
I know Army has a. I think they have to play at Notre Dame at some point, but like, those teams are capable of making the college football playoff, and I'd love to see a military academy make the playoff. No NIL, no transfers. Like, that would be pretty cool to see. So, Navy at Air Force. I'm going to take Navy because I'm rooting for Navy. I want them to go undefeated. I want to see that happen. That would be cool.
Can you imagine an undefeated Army versus an undefeated Navy
for
at the
playoff?
That would be insane. That would probably be the most watched Army-Navy game of all time. But with that being said, go Falcons. I'm going Air Force.
Yeah. Tough place to play.
Altitude. Air Force seems like they always beat somebody that they're not supposed to in a season. So going Air Force, triple option for the win.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I love those military academies, and honestly, I haven't watched a ton of Navy. I know they have like their quarterback is a great runner, and they always do that. But Army is actually a really good team. I saw them play on like a Friday night, and I was watching them, and they kind of throw the ball a little bit too, where they make you pay for, strictly defending the triple option. So I hope both those teams. I hope we see like a 1-loss Army, 1-loss Navy in the Army-Navy game, because usually one of those teams is not great.
Yeah.
But that's always a fun environment too late in the year. So I'm rooting for those teams to make it, and always supporting the troops, man.
Yep. Support the troops. Commanders Cup.
Yeah. Okay. Last year's national championship rematch. Both teams are a little different this year, but Michigan going to Seattle. Washington's favored by 2.5 points. Washington has looked good, but have lost some games. They kind of have a really good offense, but then haven't been able to convert their offense into touchdowns. I think this game will be payback for for the national champion. I think the Huskies get it done.
Wow.
Yeah.
I as an Oregon fan, I would never expect you to pick the Huskies.
I think it's 2 straight losses for Washington. I think they're right there on the cusp of like winning games and they their offense against Rutgers, they lost like 28-18 or 21-18. They outgained Rutgers by like 300 yards. They just couldn't score. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll finally see and Michigan doesn't pass. They can't. I mean, they don't. I think Washington has a good enough defense to hold them a couple times and finally score enough points to win that game. So I'm going to take the Huskies in that one.
Yeah, this one was tough for me. The Husky Stadium is a hard place to play. It gets loud there. But I think Michigan is riding some momentum right now, especially after that USC win a couple weeks ago. So I think Michigan's going to win this one. I believe in their quarterback situation, even though it's been a little iffy. But I think Michigan's going to win.
No, I think Husky Stadium will have a factor in that game. That's just a difficult place to play in general, and
especially with Michigan coming in.
Yeah, and that's obviously a big rematch of last year, and so I think that's one of those games where we're starting to see like the Big Ten, intermixing with the Pac-12 big dogs and the Michigans of the world and Washingtons of the world. I think that'll be a fun game to watch. Mm-hmm. What else do we have? Oregon, Michigan State, Friday night. Michigan State actually doesn't look terrible. They had some struggles. Jonathan Smith, Aiden Childs, their quarterback. Jonathan Smith, their head coach. Both Oregon State guys. Mm-hmm. So some familiarity there. I think the Ducks get it done. I think you've kind of seen, like, last week Oregon kind of went to UCLA, and it kind of just seemed like they were better. They won the game by 20 points and just kind of got out of the game. Just get out with no injuries and that kind of thing. I think you'll kind of see that again from Oregon. This may not be like a huge blowout, but I think you see Oregon win by 21, and it just is kind of over at half. Their defense just kind of locks in, forces Michigan State to do some bad things. Childs has like 8 interceptions on the year. He doesn't throw the ball very well. He's really good. He's a good quarterback, but he kind of makes some mistakes. I think you'll see him make a few more mistakes, and then Oregon gets out and sets up the big matchup next week.
Yeah, I'm agree. I'm going to go Oregon as well. I do think Michigan State is going to cover. Not that it matters, but I think it's 23.
Yeah, I think they'll cover as well. I think it'll be like a 20-point game. So.
But yeah, I kind of think that's kind of how the game's going to go. Just not a blowout, but it's just going to seem like it's
handily, but might not be like 58 to. I think Oregon scores like 38 points and wins like 38 to 17 or something like that, where it's like game was in hand, and then just Oregon's schedule is kind of set up for them to go undefeated into the Ohio State game, and Ohio State the same way. Like they haven't really played anyone, so it'll be a fun week next week. And then Boise State, Utah State's a mess. They play on the blue. I think the more interesting stuff in this game is just how highly Vegas thinks of Ashton Jeanty. His total over-under rush yards is 195.5. He was what was it?
Or minus 3,500.
Minus 3,500
for one touchdown. I think he might honestly be minus for 3, like minus 100 for 3 touchdowns, which is crazy.
It's just ridiculous how. And this could be a game where, if it's somewhat, if I would assume Boise State wins this game by 28 points. Utah State they had to find a new coach like late in the offseason and all that kind of stuff, and I think you'll see Ashton Jeanty play 3 quarters and probably put up 200 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns, which is, it's crazy to think that that's like it's a light game for him, but I mean that's kind of where he's at right now. 195 yards and 2 touchdowns seems like something he could do every night. So
yeah, I'm gonna go obviously Boise State as well. What was I going? Oh yeah, for my stats for the Genty lines, I'm going over 195. I think Utah State has been struggling defending the run, I believe, and I'm gonna go 2 touchdowns as well, just because I agree with you. I don't think he's gonna play the whole game. But one thing I was just gonna say that like makes him so fun to watch is he's not just like scoring wide open touchdowns. It's just the factor that he can turn. It's like Marshawn Lynch, like turning something from nothing. But
we like I'm so accustomed to watching him that it doesn't really matter. It's not. Yeah, it's like you said. It's not necessarily the play you're expecting him to score on.
Yeah.
Like he had that one against Washington State, up the middle, and they defended it well, but he broke 5 tackles in one play. Like you can't really teach that, and he kind of, if you are really into like looking at the schemes and all that stuff, like I've watched some guys who are really break it down, and they're like, on the one Washington State play, our linemen, Boise State's linemen completely mess up this play, and the center is like not blocking anyone, and he just bounces off 4 guys and scores. Like that's just it's just insane. And I think he's good for 200 yards if he plays the whole game, regardless of who he's playing. Honestly.
Yeah. One thing, who's going to be the team that sucks and has nothing to lose that just loads the box with many guys as they can?
I know. That's what and
they don't care. They go into not caring about the pass at all. Like
I think you'll see. Even with that, he's still it's crazy because he's still capable of making people pay when they do that. Like he's fast enough to bounce out and score on a loaded box, but you will see like a Wyoming late in the year like just say, hey, we're going to go 1-on-1 on the outside, and we're not gonna have any safeties.
Yeah.
So
that is, but about man, it is easier once you get outside because there's nobody out there.
Done.
So if you're playing man and once you get outside the edge, it's over.
Yeah, and I think you'll see, obviously the quarterback situation is not fantastic. I'm not someone who's going to say Madsen should be pulled from the lineup because you have so much momentum right now.
Yeah.
But there's probably going to be a game where he needs to complete some passes that are intermediate to longer, passes, and so I think that you will see that. But even now, I don't even know if that's, some of these Mountain West programs. I don't even know if they have the tacklers to even make those plays at this point in the year.
Yeah, and Madsen had some good passes. He had some bad passes as well, but he did what he needed to do. But you're right. There may be a game where he needs to step up a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. But again, like I said, I think this is kind of the last week of college football where you're kind of like, what games do I watch and that kind of thing. There's just going to be big games after big game going forward. So it's exciting times.
Yeah. You got anything else?
I think that's about it. We kind of covered everything. I'm just getting a little closer to hoops, and NBA is starting back up with the preseason and all that stuff. So, I'm excited for this year of college basketball and starting to cover that stuff. And I love that overlap of college basketball and college football. I think that's a great time of the year. So yeah. I mean, that's all we got. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll be back next week with episode 6. Just continue to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Orange Ball Media, Orange Ball Podcast. And appreciate it.